Mercedes-Benz just sold a car for $142 million. Let's talk about why. This is the Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR Uhlenhaut Coupe. It's one of the rarest prototype cars ever, if not the rarest, and Rudolf Uhlenhaut, whom the car is named after, was Mercedes-Benz chief engineer at the time and an absolute genius. His 300 SLR was so ahead of its time, capable of achieving straight line speeds of up to 180 miles an hour in the 1950s. It was a front mid-engine car, meaning the engine sat in the front of the driver but behind the front axle, so that the weight distribution was a little bit more even. It had a naturally aspirated inline 8-cylinder engine with 302 horsepower and 233 foot-pounds of torque. Combine that with a weight of only 1,986 pounds, and you've got an absolute beast of a car. He was able to achieve such a lightweight design because he used brazed steel tube space frame for the chassis and ultralight electron magnesium alloy bodywork. Think of the space frame like a geometry pattern that provides strength using trusses and interlocking struts rather than solid steel. It's basically a roll cage but used for the entire structure of the car. It was an absolute achievement in engineering, but it was mainly for their race division and it was never really used. Mercedes-Benz suspended their race division after a huge crash and fire at Le Mans, and so this car was one of only 2 prototypes ever made, and it sat in the Mercedes-Benz Museum. Mercedes-Benz is one of the most successful world brands and companies. What possibly could have prompted them to part ways with this piece of history? Money? Well, obviously. Why does anyone sell anything? But is it really just that they needed money? They say the decision to sell the car was not taken lightly, and the fact that it was going to sell for the highest value ever, with the previous record being only 70 million, only 70 million, wasn't even considered. Obviously, they wanted to get the most possible for the car, but it being the most valuable car of all time was nowhere in their decision-making process. The catalyst was actually the environment. Mercedes-Benz has been an innovator for decades, but now they saw an opportunity to inspire and support a new generation of innovators by establishing the Mercedes-Benz Fund, which will be funded with the proceeds of this sale and will be provided for educational and research scholarships in the area of environmental science and decarbonization. That's certainly a noble cause, so I don't want to take anything away from the goodwill, but my first question as a car enthusiast is, what happens to the car? Well, the private collector who bought it is allowing Mercedes-Benz to keep possession of the car, and it will remain in the Mercedes-Benz Museum. Considering it's one of the rarest and coolest cars ever made, I certainly think that's what's best for the car, not necessarily what's best for the collector. A more cynical person could argue that Mercedes is just doing this for good PR, sort of a virtue signal of sorts, but I have a slightly different take. I think they saw an opportunity for a win-win. This is a brilliant PR move that also has some real net positives for the world. Instead of just having the car sit in their museum, they get to have the car sit in their museum and get $142 million to put towards building a more sustainable and carbon-free future, which is not something historically the automobile industry has been very concerned with. I know recently there has been a shift in strategy as most automakers are now switching to electric, but in the past it was fossil fuels all day long. Anyways, in the end, Mercedes-Benz and this private collector have done something positive for the world, and more importantly, we have a new record for the highest priced car ever sold. So yay cars. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you've learned something about cars today, as that is always my goal. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Bye.